Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning. I'm Sunnyvale Mayor Larry Klein. Thanks for joining me again this week at our early start time. Happy August. I hope everyone is doing well. This is the 73rd installment of my weekly virtual office hour address. And we've now reached 508 days since the March 16th, 2020 county health order started the shelter in place in an attempt to slow the spread of COVID-19. And we've done well, and we're kind of backsliding a little bit. But 16 months ago, I converted my weekly office hours at a coffee shop downtown into this live stream address, and I haven't missed a week since. You know, people really say they enjoy hearing from their mayor every week, whether or not they can watch it live. You know, these weekly sessions are great for me because they allow me to kind of look back on the last few weeks, and then they also give me a chance to provide you some updates, some news, you know, answer some of your questions, and just pass on some general words of encouragement. I'm now also following these televised sessions with in-person meetings in downtown Sunnyvale. So you can find me at Bean Scene from 9:30 to 11 or so, maybe later, maybe short, depending upon what the day is. So if you want to meet me in person, if you have an issue that you'd like to talk to with me personally, you can always meet me at Bean Scene. You can always email me, of course, and reserve a specific, 15 or 30-minute time slot if you want. But thank you for allowing me to continue to represent you and work for Sunnyvale however I can. A few months ago, I also started changing my background art every week. So with art provided ultimately by Sunnyvale artists. So today's piece is called Sunset on the Nile, and it's by Catherine Gross. If you want to purchase that art, you can always reach out to me, and I will put you in contact with that artist. Okay, let's go ahead and get started and talk about what's happened at the federal, state, county, and city level over the last 2 weeks. Last Monday, Governor Newsom had a press conference, and he pleaded, for the millions of unvaccinated Californians to get vaccinated. As the state's largest employer, he also announced that they will lead by example and require all state health workers to show proof of vaccination or be tested regularly. And he urged local governments and private employers to do the same. So definitely some of the local, the county, as well as the several cities, and a lot of employers have put similar actions into place as far as requiring vaccines or at least requiring regular testing. The governor avoided answering whether or not masks would be required by those unvaccinated, but that's kind of changed from a CDC standpoint. On Tuesday of last week, the CDC changed its mask guidance in response to the increasing number of COVID cases, and so because coronavirus cases had significantly increased, almost more than 1,000 cases per 100,000 cases per day. The CDC called for all vaccinated people in high transmission areas to wear a mask indoors, kind of reinstating previous pandemic restrictions that were there. And so ultimately, a lot of the local communities have already modeled that same restriction, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. Last Tuesday, City Council met, and we had two big items. First, we declared a stage 2 water shortage and set a 15% water use reduction goal. And so part of that stage 2 restrictions approved mandatory watering irrigation schedules, and it also limits irrigation to 3 days a week, depending upon what your address is. So if you have an odd number address, so an address ending in 13579, then you can irrigate only on Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. And then if you have an even address, so 02468, then you should only be irrigating on Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. So there should be no irrigation on Wednesdays. So it makes it easy for staff to to figure out whether or not there are any prohibited irrigation going on. And then, of course, uh, kind of long-standing ordinance, customers are still prohibited from irrigating between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Um, due to our municipal city code. And then, there are also Sunnyvale's enforcement of this, conservation program also has possible fines for those who fail to comply with provisions. And so there'll be, a certain amount of outreach that'll be going on. There's, working with Santa Clara Valley Water and working, with city staff, going through social media. That will be kind of one of the big things. But the fines, are mainly to kind of educate people. So the first or second violation would be a written warning. So no fee, no fine actually there. But the third violation would be a $250 fine, and the fourth violation would be a $500 fine. So it's trying to get people to be a little more conscious of what they're doing with their water, and so it's like in doing all the appropriate water saving measures that you can, in a lot of whether or not that's utilizing a bucket in the tub. Right now, for the last few months, we've been showering with a bucket so that you have additional water that would have gone to waste that you can put on your vegetables or your other landscaping. And the Santa Clara Valley Water also has multiple programs to convert basically turf or lawns into drought resistant landscaping. So they have programs as far as that's concerned. They have water collection drain pipe measures. So basically large underground systems or just a bucket system, that barrel system that you can put next to your drain pipes. And so there's a lot of things from that standpoint that they are funding. And the other thing that we did that evening was we adopted a resolution to support outdoor dining on private parking lots, as well as closing the 100 block of South Murphy Avenue until December 31st. And so we'll continue to evaluate these programs. We already, one of the things that staff wanted to basically move forward with is a new study issue to permanently close, the 100 block of South Murphy. And I think that's been one of the positive things that's come about as far as the shelter in place. A lot of people talked about that for years, and finally we've actually attempted the shelter in place, or done the closing down that to pedestrian traffic only. And so the shelter in place made us try something as a pilot program, and I think it's really been successful. And I've heard from a lot of residents who really love the outdoor feeling. I was there this week several times, having lunch, having coffee, and I think it's really created a real gem in downtown Sunnyvale. But it's also all the other businesses that have been able to utilize a portion of their parking lots for outdoor dining, which most people feel a lot more safe about, especially with the additional mask measures that are in place. So we'll see the final study issue at our budget workshop, and we'll probably have something come in front of us in December to look at conceivably extending one or both of those programs. So we'll see what council ultimately does, but I think it's been a positive thing for our businesses, especially as we've had kind of the up and down from what's happening with the virus and the variants, and conceivably whether or not it's fully safe to be inside in restaurants and businesses and all that. On Wednesday, the California Department of Public Health announced that it recommends everyone mask up indoors regardless of an individual's vaccination status. So that was on the heels of what the CDC did on Tuesday. So now everyone should be wearing a mask indoors, and this doesn't preclude bars and restaurants. So while you're eating, while you're drinking, yes, you can be unmasked, but ultimately it's a reminder that everyone should be masked. whenever they can. Uh, and I think that's a positive, positive thing. It just reduces the possibility, or greatly reduces the possibility of contracting COVID-19, and spreading it to someone else. So I think it's positive for you. It's positive for other people, whether or not you've been exposed or whether or not they've been exposed. So it just helps reduce the overall transmission, and I think it's good practice. I think most people have already continued to do that. So uh, I think it's just helping, put that in place from a state standpoint. And then last Thursday, President Biden announced, federal employees must show proof that they've received the coronavirus vaccine, or they need to wear masks at work and undergo regular testing. And I think the White House, the president, emphasized that it's not a vaccination mandate, although they continue to look at, whether or not they can do that. There was discussion today about whether or not they will be making it a mandate for our service personnel, for our Army and Navy. We'll see what happens as far as that's concerned. But it's also, the president pushed, state and local governments to put incentives in place for people to get vaccinated. And then as far as this week is concerned, um, on Monday, City Hall reopened its doors for the first time, and it's been open by appointment for like the planning staff, but now we are officially open, for 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and it was good to have a little celebration at City Hall. We had some coffee and donuts for the returning workers, some of who have never, haven't seen each other except over video for the last year, or haven't, we've had new workers start, and it's good to see these people finally meet others in person. And of course, the library is extending its hours this week to start including, Sundays and evenings, so going back to a normal schedule. And then, based upon new recommendations, of course, from the Santa Clara County Public Health, all visitors, employees, vaccinated or unvaccinated, um, should be, the entering City Hall or any city facility should be wearing a mask. So that's a requirement. The city will continue to monitor, the county health guidelines, and adjust as needed. But right now, you should have a mask if you're going to City Hall, or any of our city facilities. And then on Monday afternoon, county health officers from Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, San Mateo, San Francisco, Santa Clara, and Sonoma, issued new health orders, which went into effect midnight on Tuesday. And the new health orders required everyone, regardless of vaccination status, to wear face coverings when indoor in public settings. And so, at a press conference, Santa Clara health officer said businesses will be required to post signs to enforce that mask mandate. And members of the public can, of course, lodge complaints about violators online through the county's website. So that enforcement would be all complaint driven, and it would mainly be done through the county. But restaurants and bars, customers should wear masks when they come inside, and then remove them only when eating or drinking. So it's just good practice. The Los Angeles County did that last month, I think mid-July. It ordered masks for everyone indoors in public spaces. And the current Bay Area health order would be in place indefinitely, but it would, depending upon hospitalization rates. So if hospitalization rates drop, then they would actually see conceivably removing that mandate. But right now, it was those cities, and then I think just this morning, Sonoma, I think, was added Sonoma, Napa, I think, just added on to that. So I think it's almost every county in the Bay Area now has that requirement of wearing a mask indoors. And then also on Monday, You know, it was actually back to school day at Sunnyvale Community Services. So it was great. You know, I visited and helped out for a little while, but this it used to be a backpack program, and now it was a back to school day. So it was gift cards, gift cards, and a certain amount of items, in all through pickup. So that was the good thing. So it was, new school shoes, backpacks, school supplies. It really helps jumpstart those school those school kids that really need additional help. But there are lots of smiling parents and kids. When I visited, as Sunnyvale Community Services safely distributed all those boxes. So it was actually good from that standpoint that it was people would drive through, pop their trunks, and depending upon how many children they had, they would then get that distributed, a box of good items for the school year. So thanks for all the residents who contributed and volunteered, and a special thanks to all the additional sponsors, the City of Sunnyvale, the County of Santa Clara, El Camino Health, FedEx, Google, Intuitive, NetApp, and many others. But it was good to be there and enjoy seeing all those smiling faces. It's good to have that every year, even under remote learning and the upcoming school year, whatever the issues are as far as distance learning. Hopefully we don't have to go back there. We're only about a week away from school starting up again, and so hopefully things go smoothly as far as that's concerned. Tuesday was National Night Out. I ended up visiting 7 different locations in Sunnyvale, and from the north end of the city to the south end of the city. Other council members were out there visiting, as well as public safety. So they had fire trucks and motorcycle patrol, canine officers, and more. It was good being out in the community, seeing people. As far as that's concerned, definitely was actually. I saw a lot of neighbors meeting each other for the first time. So a lot of people who had moved into neighborhoods who hadn't got a chance to meet each other. Also, just it was actually very positive as far as kind of almost back to some normality. Wearing masks. Everybody was wearing masks, and being pretty safe. But it was also kind of sharing some potluck items, and having the kids play. It was actually a lot of good events around the city. Normally that was it's the first Tuesday in August, that it's a national event that people it's that National Night Out is. We canceled it last year, but it was actually good to have it this year and kind of get back to some sort of normality, or some sort of kind of what used to be. So I think of people that were able to do it appreciate it. We didn't have as many locations as we normally had, and it still was an effort to make it around. It's like you can't get to everyone during the evening, and so having a few other council members out there also, meeting residents. So we had, I was able to make it to 7 of, I think, 11 or 12 that were going on. So it was good to see people in person. And then on Wednesday, we kicked off the August Downtown Sunnyvale Music Series. So another thing that had been canceled last year, Groove Foundation. So they're here every year. They came back and playing some rock and top 40s hits. But we also had the county vaccination van set up in the Macy's parking lot. So the tents were there, and we had the volunteers and nursing staff there to help out, giving people shots, and they were fairly busy. So that was positive. I was surprised about the number of people that were getting their first shot. It's been quite a number of months that the vaccine has been available, but people were there, and I think it was positive to have that there as part of the music and everything else. So hopefully they'll be back later again this month, and so for a second shot, and we'll talk about that. a little bit later, but I think it was a very positive experience, and I think it's a great program to just be out in the community in the evening for those people that have to work all day and haven't been able to make it to one of the pop-up sites around the county. And then last night, our redistricting outreach happened. And so this was a communities of interest workshop. And this is, part of our effort based upon, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we did a lot of outreach and divided the city into 6 districts. We had our first district elections last November. So we have our first district council members. But ultimately, because the 2020 census, we're in the process of redistricting. And so this was trying to define what our community interests are, communities of interest. And this was a hybrid meeting, so we actually had in person at Columbia Neighborhood Center, and then we had a lot of people online joining in. And so and it's figuring out what what are the different kind of communities of interest within the city, and that goes from neighborhood associations, which that's one of the big things of trying to figure out what neighborhoods are, but it's also kind of school attendance areas. Mobile home parks were a big portion of some of the community group that got together in the last districting when we were doing our districting. Business areas, other areas based upon race, income, education, language. All those are kind of areas of interest. And this was the first of several meetings. If you want to go back and watch that meeting, it is online. And you can find out all the information about, redistricting at sunnyvale.ca.gov/redistricting. And then you can also get, there's a mapping tool of trying to divide the city and getting kind of used to that. That goes online today. But of course, the 2020 census data won't be available until later in the fall. But at that point, that's when the big efforts come of having residents, either create their own maps or give feedback to our redistricting commission to figure out how to divide or how to change the district lines that were defined about a year or almost 2 years ago now. Okay, let's go ahead and get to the weekly COVID numbers. So, definitely the number of new COVID cases keep increasing, mainly as a result of the Delta variant. And, I'm sure that there's already been talk of a Lambda variant, and I'm guessing that we'll have a lot more going forward. For new COVID cases from a national standpoint, we've now reached 35.4 million cases. That's more than 700,000 new cases in the last week. A week ago it was a 500,000 cases over the week. So we are over 100,000 on average a day right now, with mainly because of the Delta variant. We've had 193 million people vaccinated with at least one dose, and that's over 70% of adults, and about 61% of adults are fully vaccinated. So it's positive from that standpoint, but we're still having people die because of COVID. We've had over 612,000 deaths, nearly 3,000 just in the last week. And from a California standpoint, we've now just passed 4 million positive cases, I think, as of this morning. And we're getting about, I think it is about 9,500 cases a day now, and that's up from 7,500 just a week ago. So it's actually rapidly increasing of the number of new cases, and the majority of those are the Delta variant. And we've had just over 64,000 fatalities. So we've it is affecting California in a big way. We're seeing more cases, more deaths, more hospitalizations across the state. The county's doing fairly well. We've increased also, but from a California standpoint, we've had 44 million, over 44 million vaccines administered. about 1 million just in the last week. And then, where we stand in comparison to other states, we're still at number 10 on states with residents with at least one dose, with 78.8% of our residents with at least one dose, and 17th on states with fully vaccinated residents, and that's 64.4%. So it's looking good, but definitely, there is a ways to go as far as that's concerned. From a county standpoint, our cumulative cases are still under 125,000, so just under 125,000, but that's about up 2,000 since last week, and and that's a week ago we were up 1,500 since from the week prior. So we are seeing an increase, a steady increase. It's pretty low compared to where we were this time last year. But that being said, it's increased quite a bit since the beginning of June. We've had 1,709 deaths in the county due to COVID, and we've had 2 additional ones just in the last week. But 84.7% of the county, age 12 and older, has at least had one dose, and 79% of those 12 and older are fully vaccinated. So, it's very positive. People are doing their part to, get vaccinated and trying to be safe as much as possible. I continue to do a lot of advocating on our city's behalf, at the county level. Continued having discussions with county health and county supervisors, getting pop-up sites within our city as much as possible. If you want to get tested, and it's a lot harder to get tested, a lot of people are trying to get tested right now because they think they've been exposed or possibly been exposed. You can go to sccfreetest.org, and you can figure out where you can sign up to get an appointment, or figure out what pop-ups or walk-in places are there. As for getting vaccinated, the city is helping still. If you give a call to the senior center at 408-730-7360, we have care managers helping seniors. So if you know of a senior or are a senior that is homebound, or if you're homebound at all and haven't been able to get the vaccination, the county health band is doing at-home vaccinations. So they will help you set up that appointment. There's lots of drop-in places where you can get vaccinated around the county. So if you go to sccfreevax.org, I've been talking with the county, and that was one of the ways we were able to get the pop-up vaccination site at the Monday night or the Wednesday night music, at Murphy and Washington. That pop-up vaccination van will be back on the last Wednesday night in August. So they'll be back on August 25th from 5 to 10 p.m. So for those that need their second shot, or those that haven't got their shot yet, that will be happening. And they're looking at several other locations within the city. So hopefully that works out from a county standpoint. El Camino Health has also been very good. They've been, they have vaccinations at their clinic, but they're also doing a no-cost vaccination site at Columbia Neighborhood Center tomorrow. So that will be happening from 3 to 6 p.m. at Columbia Middle School on Morse Avenue. So if you haven't got your vaccination, if you, and this is the whole thing of children that want to get their vaccinations, anyone 12 and older can go to Columbia Middle School tomorrow, Saturday, August 7th, from 3 to 6 p.m. And thank you, El Camino Health, for sponsoring that vaccination site. And that's for anyone, depending upon what their what their health provider is, whether or not they live in the district, work in the city. This is a free vaccination site for anyone. And then I want to announce some upcoming events. So lots of things are happening. It was a busy week this past week. Tomorrow night, Saturday night will be the first evening of Jazz and Beyond. And so this is, you know, the August of Jazz on Saturday nights. Normally it goes all summer long. Well, this year our Jazz and Beyond will only be happening, the Saturdays in August, much like our Wednesday night music is every Wednesday night in August. But it'll be from 6 to 8 p.m. on Murphy Avenue. So definitely, if you like jazz, definitely feel free to come by. You can always go to the Sunnyvale Downtown Association website and find out what the full list of jazz is. I think the final jazz night is going to be a big one. So definitely join us if you can. And then on Monday, this coming Monday is the August 9th, is the last day to turn in your board and commission applications. And we have quarterly recruitment for any open positions. For this recruitment, we have one position in the Bicycle and Pedestrian and Advocacy Commission, one in the Heritage Preservation Commission, and one in the Personnel Board. So you can go to the Sunnyvale website and search for boards and commissions, and you'll see how to fill out an application for, turn that in by 4 p.m. on Monday. And then interviews are scheduled for August 17th. And this coming Tuesday is City Council will meet on several items, one of which is direction regarding in-person, basically returning to in-person council meetings, along with our boards and commission meetings, and what the hybrid in-person teleconference meeting options look like. And definitely there's been lots of benefits of moving to remote meetings, but we need to look at when we'll start doing hybrid again, whether or not that's just for council, whether or not that's for all of our commissions, boards and commissions. Definitely the addition of a mask mandate kind of changes what that perspective might be, making sure that everyone's masked indoors and using mics and all that when masked conceivably might have some issues. So definitely we'll continue to look at that from a discussing that at a council standpoint. I do think that there's been lots more participation, but we do know that there is that digital divide, and trying to figure out what people, whether or not they feel comfortable being indoors and now indoors and masked to attend a meeting, or whether or not we maintain for a while longer kind of that remote concept of everyone zooming into our meetings, or watching, on YouTube or something of that nature. And then one of the other things that we're doing is considering long-term advocacy positions related to redistricting for, elective offices representing Sunnyvale residents. And, and definitely Sunnyvale's going through its own redistricting effort right now. But one of the things that we do every year is set aside advocacy positions. And one of the things that we didn't make as part of that advocacy is defining, redistricting. And I know that for the 2010 census, there was a lot of efforts for, trying to talk about how redistricting affects our city and our interest representation, and that kind of goes through, the county and our county supervisors, our congressional district, our state senate, our state assembly, as well as our school districts. And so it's good to, have that discussion and figure out, what kind of representation council would like, and also, gives the staff and the mayor, of course, that flexibility to write advocacy in kind of representing our city's best interest. And then lastly, we will be introducing an ordinance, amending the Sunnyvale Code to reduce the number of signatures required for district elections. Right now, depending upon how many signatures residents collect, or council, a potential candidate for council could collect a certain number of signatures, and these are written signatures because of the county registrar. But at a certain point, if they collect enough signatures, then the city will pay for their ballot statement. And so that made sense, and those numbers were kind of ongoing numbers that we had, because when all of our city was all of our council seats were citywide, it made sense to have a certain number. Um, that being said, when we go to district elections and reduce the number of voting members in a specific district, then it only makes sense conceivably that we reduce the number of signatures, that barrier of entry, to get that ballot statements, to qualify for the to qualify to run a campaign, to be a candidate for a district council member. It only makes sense to seemingly reduce those numbers to something, something a little less. And so, staff has several alternatives for council, and that's what we'll be discussing, on Tuesday night. So you can join that discussion if you want. Definitely because of COVID, we actually threw out a lot of those requirements, mainly because the concept of having, hundreds of people trying to sign the same sheet, and wasn't completely safe under COVID. And the way this county registrar currently operates, there's no concept of a let's say a DocuSign or something of that nature. So because they need hard sheets, we still had to be a candidate, you had to get 20 signatures, and so we still had that requirement, but it wasn't the hundreds of signatures and hundreds of people signing the same piece of paper that would have actually conceivably increased risk of COVID-19. And so that's one of the things that we discarded during COVID, but definitely as we're looking forward in what we want to do regarding what those numbers are, what the signature requirements numbers are, it only makes sense. Let's go ahead and get to our weekly questions. So if you have any questions, definitely put them into the chat window, and I'll get to them. Pearl asked, what are the new library hours? And so this week, things are almost back to normal. And so starting the new hours at the library will be Sunday, 1 to 6 p.m., Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So that's fairly normal as far as that's concerned. Margarita asked, whom do I turn to have our sidewalk tree trimmed? Several of our neighbors have had their trees trimmed, and I just want to know the process. So that's fairly simple. It's where you also report any issues as far as like a street light that's out or a sidewalk that's cracked. You need to go to sunnyvale.ca.gov, and at the top you'll see an Access Sunnyvale link, and that's where you click on that and you can report lots of things from I'll say public works items to an abandoned vehicle, or there's lots of, or you just raising questions that you have with the city. So that's one of the easy things that you can do from that standpoint. Francesca asked, oh yeah, I would like to report an issue with around the Sunnyvale Community Center area on the growing geese population. Given their numbers, it's probably nearly impossible to keep up with cleaning the park, but the walkways are almost always covered with their droppings. This is not a problem limited to the park, but the geese also cross the street and make the sidewalks and road dirty. I often see kids playing there, and I wonder if being in such close contact with droppings is good for their health. I know it's not an easy problem, but I have no idea about what solutions could be, but I think it'd be great for the park for the problem to be solved or alleviated. So definitely there will be outreach meetings starting in the fall to look at long-term use of community center site, including possible removal of the pond along Remington. I think that's one of the big attractors to the geese population there. I don't think we would have as many geese if there wasn't the water to play around in. And so that is going to be part of the outreach. I know that's been part of those discussions that we'll be talking about, whether or not to make that whole area in front of the community center and the senior center into more of open space, more accessible, green, open fields or something of that nature. So a lot more activity that could be added into that community. Molly asked, can we have an update on the Washington Park pool opening? So, as I said last week, the opening's been delayed because of some issues with some of the pool equipment. And, so we had all the equipment there. So the pool, is filled. The date was supposed to be, it was supposed to be opening this past Monday. That being said, everything's complete except for some ADA equipment that was delayed. And in checking around the country, our development team has found out that it's being delayed all over the country. We're trying to figure out, is there some alternatives that we can do, but because until that's installed, then we can't have the final inspections to make sure everything meets code. And so when that's installed, we'll have those inspections and then it'll be open. There actually will be a small grand opening event this afternoon, but no one gets to use the pool yet. Definitely the chain link fences have been removed from around the site, so you can, if you go by, you can see, you can look in. Definitely, I think it looks pretty amazing inside, and I can't wait to get out and use that pool. And I hear from a lot of residents who are looking forward to the same thing as far as that's concerned. Chuck asked, will there be an Art and Wine Festival this year? And yes, the Chamber will be putting an Art and Wine Festival on. It's scheduled for October, the first week in October, October 2nd and 3rd. So, we're all looking forward to that. It'll be closing down. I don't think it'll be as big as it has been in the past, especially at a different time of the year. And we'll keep our fingers crossed about the weather as far as that's concerned. But people are, looking forward to that. The Chamber, the Sunnyvale Chamber, is actively looking at that as far as that's concerned. David asked, what are we doing for small businesses? And so, I was actually at a meeting with the Chamber just yesterday morning, actually. So the city of Sunnyvale, along with the Chamber of Commerce, along with Google, is actually helping small businesses trying to improve their online presence. So we had, event there to kind of help businesses, be better placed as far as search results are concerned, get a better online presence. So we've been conducting, a series of workshops, whether or not that's helping residents or helping businesses figure out how to negotiate back rent with their landlords, or in this case, how to have a better online presence, how to do, better delivery, things of that nature, all those sorts of things of how to run your business better. And we've had, we're having new businesses open. So we have, several soft openings that are going on right now for several restaurants. So you'll be hearing about those soon. But definitely, it's been very positive. What we can do for all small businesses. Definitely, whatever you can do, eat local. Go to eatsunnyvale.com and you can see all of my more than 200 reviews of Sunnyvale restaurants, and a handful have closed. I heard one of the ones that I haven't mentioned is Rock Bistro closed last month. It's been part of our community for many, many years, but there's already a restaurant that's moving into their location on Murphy Avenue. And so looking forward to having, a different type of food on Murphy Avenue. So that's actually been very positive. Another question, Cindy asked, will we have an ice rink this year? So definitely, it was a lot of fun 2 years ago. City Line just announced that they plan to open the ice rink on November 19th of this year. So we'll be able to have that outdoor exercise. And I think it's a good, kickoff to the winter season. Hopefully people will feel safe being outdoors, and I think that's been a long-term positive thing as far as adding a lot more activity to downtown Sunnyvale. And John asked, what will we replace the Macy's? So, you know, the cleanup after the demolition of the Macy's site is almost complete. So that should be finishing in the next week or two. But as for what replaces it, you know, it'll be replaced with a 7-story building. So there'll be retail on the bottom, there'll be underground parking, and there'll be 6 stories of office space above. And so it'll kind of continue that feel of retail along Murphy Avenue, kind of leading up to the AMC, the Whole Foods, the Ulta Beauty, farther down Murphy Avenue. And then it'll also have, you know, that office space of additional workers coming to downtown above that. And I think that's it for questions. Let's see. I think that's it for questions. So let's go ahead and wrap up. You know, I just want to thank you for joining me again this week. You know, I'm proud of Sunnyvale's response to the pandemic over the last year and a half almost. It hasn't been easy. You know, this future is still uncertain. We're constantly changing, but you know, your response makes a difference. You know, new issues come up. You know, but I'm really happy to see how people respond, you know, to that adversity. And it hasn't been easy, but you know, people have done what they need to do, have been helping out residents, you know, they've gotten their vaccinations, have been wearing your mask, and definitely please wear your mask when inside. You know, we continue to rebuild our community I think, you know, ultimately Sunnyvale will emerge from this as a stronger community. You know, we're in this together. We will get through this together. You know, thanks for listening. Take care. Of course, wear your mask. And until next week, have a fantastic weekend. Have a fantastic week. Take care. See you. Goodbye.